Welcome back to our third episode of the BinkCast Podcast. Thanks again for joining us. Quick plug before we start, we are now on Apple Podcasts.
Woohoo!
So make sure to check us out there, and please, if you are enjoying the show, leave a rating. It really helps us spread the word and supports the show, so we appreciate it. We've got a good episode for you guys today. We're starting off with some sports news, a few NBA jersey retirements, an injury update, and some more news. Then we'll move into our trivia time. I'll be asking David to name the current leading scorers for certain NBA teams that I have listed down here. And then after that, we're going to be talking about our favorite NHL players growing up and why we love them so much. So let's get started.
For sure, yeah, definitely looking forward to this one. So I guess, like you were saying, there were some jersey retirements, so we can move first into Manu Ginobili from the San Antonio Spurs.
That's right.
He was the 9th player in franchise history to have his jersey retired. He played 16 seasons with the franchise. He was with them the whole time. He won 4 championships. His personal stats include the franchise leader in three-pointers made and steals, and he has the best winning percentage of any player that has played more than 1,000 career games.
Wow. That's impressive.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Ben, tell me a little bit what he was going through the Spurs organization while they were winning.
I mean, yeah, he was part of the big historic trio of, I would say, early 2000s leading into sort of the early 2010s, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
That was their prime of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. That was the big three. Tony Parker and Manu, obviously the backcourt, right? Mm-hmm. Shooting guard, point guard, and then Tim Duncan, power forward, sometimes would probably play center, I imagine. Yeah. He had the skills. But they were a pretty dominant team for a long time. But when we say dominant, we don't really mean super flashy. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Warriors now, like the Golden State Warriors, kind of have a lot of flashy players, right?
Or even into the Miami Heat of when LeBron, D-Wade, and Bosh there. They were a very flashy group. Meanwhile, the early San Antonio Spurs, headed by Greg Popovich, was a team that was purely about fundamentals, right? You hear all the time about how they have great ball movement as a team. They have great flow as well. So often they didn't really have an all-star team, per se, let's say, in the most current years. But they were still able to get it done because their team chemistry was so good.
Yeah, I think that's been a staple of the Spurs organization for as long as I can remember and look back. Is they've always been a team based around fundamentals.
Yeah, exactly.
And like having good quality basketball. And I think it's a class act to retire Manu Ginobili, but I think it certainly was expected, as he was arguably one of the biggest parts of making that the staple of the Spurs.
Oh, 100%. Even when he was originally drafted, I remember Tim Duncan was saying during his retirement ceremony that he had no idea who this guy was. I could check it quickly, but I'm pretty sure he was drafted in the second round or later to where he was never really supposed to be something, but I definitely think that in that Spurs organization, they were really able to work together as a group, and Manu was one of those key players that really helped them win championships. I remember Popovich even had a quote where he said they wouldn't have won if it wasn't for Manu. They had Tim Duncan, who was able to really lock it down low defensively, and he was great with that hook shot he was always able to make. Tony Parker was a great playmaker, but Manu was just that third guy, that third option that every championship team needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so just the draft info. He was drafted in 1999, second round, 57th pick.
Yeah, so that's the third last pick, right? Because there's only 2 rounds. So he was really able to perform for someone that wasn't really supposed to do much as a late second round pick.
Yeah, what a steal.
Yeah,
what a steal, absolutely.
Big time.
I would say the majority, almost, if not, an incredible majority of second round 57 overall picks get their jersey retired.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely congrats to Manu. He definitely had a great career, great team beside him, great coach. Even with Popovich, as we were mentioning earlier. So definitely go him. He definitely needed and deserved to have his jersey retired after that great career.
Yeah, absolutely. So Manu, congratulations on that. The next jersey retirement, Chris Bosh.
Mm-hmm.
He had his jersey retired by the Miami Heat. So he played 13 seasons in the NBA. 7 of those 13 were with the Toronto Raptors, and 6 were with the Miami Heat. Mm-hmm. He was the franchise player, I would argue, in Toronto.
Yeah, for sure.
Almost all of those 7 years. And then in his time in Miami, he won 2 championships as a part of the big 3 there with LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and him, Chris Bosh.
Mm-hmm. Of course. He was also only the 4th player in Miami history to get their jersey retired. Others being Tim Hardaway, Alonzo Mourning, and Shaquille O'Neal got his jersey retired fairly recently there as well. But even I like what you were saying about Toronto earlier, because as a Raptors fan growing up, Chris Bosh was definitely one of the first people I would say I remember having as a franchise player. So even I was doing some research on on his stats, and he had a better career even in Toronto than Miami. I don't know if you saw that. Mm-hmm. But when comparing Toronto and Miami, he had a better points per game, rebounds, blocks, assists, generally the main stats that you would look for in a big man. So I would definitely say that he would probably get his jersey retired in Toronto as well, would you say?
I would hope so. I mean, he kind of, in a very dull time in the Toronto Raptors history, he kind of was with us, and I wouldn't say carried us, but definitely was the best player, hands down, which I think is why you could make the argument why he had better stats, right?
Yeah.
He was the sort of alone in that, whereas when he was in Miami, LeBron and Dwayne Wade could take over and get points.
That's definitely a great point to make, because on the Raptors, he was definitely the first option when it came to scoring. He was one of the few guys that I would actually say were talented then, but when you're pointing in Miami, he was still able to maintain relatively decent stats. But this was also when LeBron wasn't scoring, when D. Wade wasn't scoring, when these other guys were there. So that's definitely a good point to make as well. But he was definitely, like we were talking about Manu before, he was the third option on a dynasty-esque team.
Yeah.
So just because his stats didn't necessarily show how great he was, that does not mean he was not a valuable part to the team.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. I think you have to look at that with any championship team rather than looking at the superstars.
Yeah.
Look at the role players that can dominate but also can really help make the team succeed. So two incredible three pieces, I guess, on the part of a big three.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely
retired.
Definitely guys that were super valuable to their organization, someone that they wouldn't dream of changing when they were actually playing in them. So definitely congrats to Bosh and Ginobili, on those great seasons that they had. Super happy seeing them play.
Yeah.
Definitely great for the team.
Next bit of news, Patrick McCaw. Raptors point guard, can sometimes play the shooting guard depending on if we're playing small ball or not. He's injured for what looks like 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
I would definitely agree. It looks like there's injured for the first 3 weeks, which I was seeing will definitely likely miss the first round of the playoffs. Hopefully he'll be back to the second. But overall, I would say this injury isn't super devastating to the Raptors, right? When you're looking at McCaw, he's definitely one of the third-string guards, let alone, right? You have Lowry starting, you have Van Fleet, Jeremy Lin, Norman Powell, guys that could come off the bench that could also play these positions. But I also don't think it's going to be too bad going into the playoffs without him, or even for the rest of the season, because I want to say the Raptors have the second seed pretty much locked up. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree. And like you said, it shouldn't have a huge impact.
No.
I would be surprised if it does.
Yeah.
It's still a loss nonetheless that a player is injured for 3 weeks, but I'm not panicking. I'm not worried. It's not a blow to the hope I have for the Raptors.
Yeah, exactly. He's not really a guy that I see as a difference maker.
No.
For the Raptors. Sure, it's never nice to lose a guy to injury. You always want to be able to rest your starters a little bit more. But what I even noticed last year is come playoff time, your bench doesn't really play as much as the starters do, right? Especially as we saw with what LeBron was doing for the Cavaliers. There were times where he's playing 3/4, if not all of the games.
Yeah.
I remember when he played against Indiana in in Game 7 last year, he played all 48 minutes of the game.
That's right.
So there's times to where I doubt your third or fourth string guys will even play. I bet Lowry would play easily more than half the game. Then you would have Lin sub in for him, maybe Van Fleet or Powell at the shooting guard, to where I don't even know how many minutes McCaw would get, period.
Yeah, especially since he's a new addition, because they picked him up over before the trade deadline, I believe.
Yeah, they picked him up.
They
signed him
from Cleveland.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's been playing with the team in a while, and he has incredible chemistry. I know they've been working on it, but I don't think it's reason enough to expect him to play an incredibly large amount of minutes, or even a small amount of minutes. He might not even play.
Yeah, exactly. So again, we would also be going up a weaker team in the first round, right? Whether it's the Nets, the Pistons, the Heat, any of those teams, it's not really a situation where I think the Raptors would be necessarily worried about losing a guy like him. But again, you never want a guy to get injured.
No, of course, and we do wish the best recovery for him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's his thumb. It's a thumb injury, so it's not super devastating.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, basketball players, you gotta.
Yeah, hands are kind of important, I would say, when it comes to the sports aspect of that. But I don't think Raptors or Raptors fans should really be too worried.
No, not at all.
About that.
I'm not.
No, me neither.
Something that, could be worrying people, LeBron.
Yeah.
LeBron is, the Lakers announced that they're going to sit him for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. So when I first heard that, I was a little confused, and I would say even disappointed with the Lakers organization, because there's only 3 or 4 games left. I mean, given that he's one of the veterans on the team and he's such a leader, supposed leader in the locker room, you would expect him to come back and at least finish and play these next few games. But again, they're saying that the reason they're sitting him is so he can fully heal his groin injury. But I don't know how I feel about it necessarily. I'm not the biggest fan. I think that if he was good enough to play and come back, they shouldn't necessarily sit him.
No, and I think there's only 5 games remaining. If I'm not
only
mistaken.
4 or 5
4
around
or
there.
5, and I mean, at first when I read that, I was like, wow, he's sitting for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. But then I took a step back and realized that like it's almost the end of the season, so it's not too many games. But like this is the first season LeBron will ever have with less than 60 games played.
Yeah.
He'll only have played 55.
Yeah.
That's the lowest in his entire NBA career. Fun fact, I was looking this up.
I'm excited.
Out of his 1,198 games played, he has started in 1,197.
So he's only hasn't started
he
one.
only hasn't started in one game, which just makes sense, right? He's like
kind of one of the greatest
one of the
players.
greatest players ever.
Yeah.
But I thought that was pretty cool. And this season, like with his season with the Lakers, he has also played the least amount of minutes per game in his entire career, sitting at 35 minutes a game.
Which I definitely find interesting because in association with that, he also has had the best stats this year than even his last MVP season, which was with Miami. He's at 27.4 points, 8.5 rebounds, 8.3 assists. But he's like you said, he's also playing about 3 or 4 less minutes per game. But that can also go back to what we were saying about teams playing with superstars is they have to share the ball a little more. Meanwhile, here in Los Angeles, he's playing with a lot of younger guys.
Yeah.
So then he's able to maybe take a few more shots and such. So that way he'd be able to have a better stat line. But this also begs the question to see, is LeBron exiting his prime? Which is, if he's only able to play 55 games because he's missing 20 plus with a groin injury, does that mean he's no longer able to compete at this level? Because he's how old now? 34, I think, 35.
Yeah.
To where most people, that's old. He was drafted in 03 and with Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade's retiring at the end of this year. So, at what point is LeBron James going to not be in that superstar form that we have seen him in for so long?
Yeah, I mean, this injury itself, the fact that he had to sit out for an injury is
It's almost unheard of.
For him, it's unheard of.
Yeah.
Right? It's reason enough to ask if he's out of his prime. I mean, looking at his stat line alone, if you just analyze the stat line, people would say no. Right?
Yeah.
He's averaging a fantastic stat line, but looking at sort of the rest of the aspects, he had to sit out, which for LeBron, I don't think he's ever sat out because of an injury.
No, not too long. No way.
Not long enough. And I mean, he looks tired. He's like, I mean, he does have to. I wouldn't say carry, but he is playing with a bunch of young guys.
Yeah.
I hope no. I'd love to see him stay in his prime for as long as possible. But if we're looking at prime, I would say he's coming either near to the end of it or is swiftly exiting.
Because I find it very interesting, just in general, him going back to the choice of going to the Lakers, to where if you want to win, then why do you go to a rebuilding team?
Yeah.
Which is something that's really confused me. But I don't think that LeBron went to LA to win. Would you say, right?
No.
He definitely went there, I think, for his post-basketball career, for something like that. To where even if I'm the GM for the Lakers, I might be thinking about even trading LeBron James.
Oh, yeah?
Which almost sounds unheard of, but it's at a point to where you have a bunch of young guys. And even at the last trade deadline, they almost abandoned their entire young core, right? Of Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, to get Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Which is something that I don't necessarily think is great in a time with the Golden State Warriors, to where you're almost guaranteed not to win. And they didn't even make the playoffs. So if I'm the Lakers, I might thinking about shopping LeBron in order to try to maybe get a Zion Williamson, a first overall pick, a guy that is just supposed to be unreal. Trading for a younger person, because Anthony Davis isn't old. I think he's mid-20s.
Yeah.
Which could even be a possible opportunity, but I think it could be smart planning for 4 or 5, maybe 6 years down the line, to where Golden State is no longer that powerhouse that we think they are, to where LeBron's getting older and retired, so that way you're able to build up this young core of superstar teammates that are just able to run through the playoffs in the coming years.
It's definitely a hot take, but I don't think it's it's too far gone. It's not too far out there, because with LeBron, if you say, okay, LeBron's available for trading, you could essentially get anybody you want.
That's definitely, I would totally agree, but there are some executives that I saw in the Western Conference that were saying that they wouldn't even trade the kitchen sink for LeBron at this point. Because as we're talking about now, he's getting older. He's unable to play as much as he used to where he might not be as valuable as the fans think he is.
Yeah. His name itself carries a lot of weight, which is, the whole reason I said you can get anything you want. For me, the name LeBron James just screams like best player.
Yeah.
Like it has a lot of like positive connotations with it, but maybe it's time where we stop carrying all that weight just with a simple name and start looking at the facts of the matter. Sure,
he definitely had amazing stats this year. We aren't denying that, but like you said, he played the fewest amount of games this year than he's ever played in his career, which is something to take into account.
Yeah.
Especially with a simple groin injury that's making him sit out so long. This may even be compared to a situation like when Wayne Gretzky was traded.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh my gosh, how can you trade the best player
ever
in a sport ever to a different team? Meanwhile, now I think LeBron's coming to the edge of that point to where I would definitely think about exploring a trade.
Yeah.
There, because right now, the Golden State Warriors are going to win the championship. If they keep Durant, I don't know what's going to happen in the free agency this year. He might go to the Knicks. He might go to a different team.
Yeah.
But it's looking like they're going to be a favorite for the next few years.
Definitely.
If their team stays together. Cousins' contract expires. He should be able to get a bigger one than the $5 million deal he signed with us last year. Durant might opt out of his player option. Draymond Green isn't the player he used to be, so who knows what's going to happen.
People have talked about Klay Thompson leaving. Maybe to
Yeah,
LA.
that's another different one. So, I mean, it depends on if they're able to bring players to LA, but I think Magic Johnson just wants to win.
Yeah.
Period. But to where I think that the Laker fans need to just admit to a rebuild and just try to get some good young guys in 4 or 5 years, maybe start another dynasty like they did with Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
But, who knows? I'm not a GM. I'm just the guy that likes pretending to be one in video games. But who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if they trade him, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they keep him.
Yeah. I think that trade would go down as, if it were to happen, one of the biggest trades we've seen in NBA.
I would agree.
History, which would be super entertaining.
Yeah, I would love it as a fan.
It would be fantastic to see just the drama and the sort of outcome of it, and we'll see if it actually happens or not.
And I mean, if it does, everyone would have their prediction of the winners and losers. But you know what? I've got my fingers crossed. I hope it happens. I think it could definitely help the Lakers organization.
Yeah, I agree. I think that does a pretty good job of wrapping up the news. Anything else we missed?
No, I think we pretty much got it down with talking about jersey retirements of Ginobili and Bosh, talking about LeBron having to sit the rest of the season and maybe some implications with that, and off to Patrick McCaw's maybe not so serious injury to the Raptors, but it should be fine. So I'd say we move on to the next game. I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Yeah, so this is game time. Game time, trivia time. The past 2 weeks, David has been quizzing me. First week it was real or fake
teams,
sports teams. And then last week, what was it last week?
Last week was
name
the captain. Yeah, exactly.
And for some reason I threw out... who did I say? David Krejci for the Boston
which was
Bruins.
An interesting take, but
you know what? We'll see how well you do here. So I'm going to ask David. I'm going to give David the name of an NBA team, and he's going to try and tell me the top scorer, the player on that roster with the most points per game
this season.
Not of all time, just this season, the 2018-2019 season. It's going to start off relatively easy. He could probably reason his way out, and then it'll get slightly more difficult as we rank up. We got 10 questions here. Number 1, the Boston Celtics.
Boston Celtics, I want to say, there's a lot of good players here, but definitely the most dominant has to be Kyrie Irving, so I'd say it's probably him.
That's right, Kyrie. Yeah. He's averaging 23.9 points.
Oh, interesting. I was thinking, maybe a little more, but I guess there are 4 All-Stars.
Yeah, they got a good team. They got a lot of people that can score. But, Kyrie, 23.9 points per game. Number 2, so you're 1 for 1.
I'm 1 for 1, perfect.
Not bad.
Progress.
The Brooklyn Nets.
D'Angelo Russell,
That's
no question. That guy's been having an unreal season so far.
He is averaging 20.8 points per game.
20.8, interesting. I would have thought a little bit more as well, but definitely in these last few weeks, he's been turning it on as a guy that's really carrying that franchise to a playoff berth.
Yeah, I gotta say, as I was doing the research for this and looking it up, I was kind of surprised the same way you were with... I mean, they're the top scorers on the team, but the points per game aren't nearly as high as we thought they were. But nonetheless, D'Angelo Russell having a fantastic season.
Yeah.
Currently top scorer for the Brooklyn Nets, 2 for 2.
2 for 2, perfect. Moving on.
Number 3, Chicago Bulls.
Chicago Bulls. This is something I thought you might ask, and I know they have a lot of young guys, but my thought would be Zach LaVine.
That's right.
That right? Yeah.
Zach LaVine. So he's averaging 23.7 points per game.
Yeah, so he's definitely one of those guys on that not-so-great team that's decent, so he's probably getting more touches than anybody else. So that would definitely make sense for him.
Exactly, 3 for 3. Number 4, the Philadelphia 76ers.
Oof, this is getting a little harder.
This one's a little bit trickier because they have quite a lot of talent.
Yeah, so my thinking is it's not Ben Simmons. He's acting as a point guard, a lot of ball movement. I don't know if it's Embiid because I think he's spent... Is it points per game or points total?
Points per game.
Okay, so injuries might not have an effect. It's while they're performing. Is it Jimmy Butler?
No, it's
It's
Joel
Embiid. Yeah.
That's why I asked it. I knew there'd be tricky. They've got Tobias Harris, they've got Jimmy Butler, and
Yeah.
Embiid. So, yeah, he's averaging 27.5.
Wow.
per game.
He's not really a guy that's got stirring up a lot of action, but he's killing it.
When he plays, now he's not playing every single game, but
Yeah.
when he plays, he has some fantastic games. He's also super entertaining.
Yeah. Oh, I love
Personality.
him. Great person to have in the league. His Instagram is fantastic.
3 for 4.
Oh,
Not too bad.
Not too bad. We're getting there.
75% sitting at.
Yep.
Number 5, the San Antonio Spurs.
The Spurs. I hope this isn't a trick question, but I'm really thinking this has to be DeMar DeRozan.
It is.
Yeah.
It is
Okay.
DeMar.
Okay. Good.
I know LaMarcus Aldridge
Yeah.
is potentially on that list.
Maybe.
Patty Mills is okay up on that list as well. But yeah, DeMar DeRozan, 21.5 points.
Yeah. See, this is one of the teams where the Spurs aren't great, but I think they're still in a playoff spot, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
Popovich just
Yeah.
able to have those guys running and gunning just great no matter what skill level they have going.
Yeah. 4 for 5. Not too shabby
Not
at
bad.
all. Number 6, the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Oh, okay. The guy that's having debatably one of the best seasons, MVP candidate, Paul George.
Paul George,
Yeah,
28.2 points per game.
Super confident on that one. He's been lighting it up.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I mean,
Yeah.
relatively. We got Westbrook out there, but Paul George, MVP candidate for sure. One of the best seasons of his career. 28.2 points per game. I'm surprised it's not more.
Yeah, because when James Harden was going on that huge 30-plus point game streak, Paul George was doing it as well, pretty much. Just no attention was on him because James Harden was doing it for longer and it's getting more points. But Paul George has been killing it this year.
He has been.
No
And
doubt.
He's such a quiet guy to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've always acknowledged Paul George as like an all-star and as a fantastic player, but if I've thought of like unreal point production and MVP, his name just hasn't come up in the past, but I hope he goes further and further this year. I'd love to see him. Number 7, the Los Angeles Clippers.
The Clippers. Okay, this is interesting, but is it Lou Williams?
It is Lou
Yeah,
Williams,
there we go.
who is currently a 6th man. I believe.
Yeah, very interesting because I know their starters, they're nothing special because since they traded away Tobias Harris, he was definitely their number one option. But I mean, I thought Lou Williams was a starter, so I'll take a bit of a hit on that one. But I mean, they don't really have any other huge point production guys. Patrick Beverley, I think, is their starting point guard, who's really great defensively, but they have no one that really shouts great offensive production.
I just want to double check to see if that actually is.
If
he actually is their 6th
If it actually
man.
is, yeah.
Because if it's not, then
Yeah, because I know a lot of people have been saying that the 6th Man of the Year award could basically be called the Lou Williams Award. I know Dwayne Wade definitely came forward talking about that, but he's one of the guys that's just something about him just had never screamed starter, so he's never really been there. But he's someone that's always able to come off the bench when you need it and be productive.
yeah,
He's
you know what? I think you might actually be a starter this season.
Yeah, because he's definitely because I don't know who else on that Clippers team that's really as good as him per se, but Lou Will has been lighting it up. No doubt, he's been playing well.
Yeah, I think one of a player that goes I think pretty underrated is Danilo Gallinari.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
Yeah, he's been playing pretty well.
Yeah, he's a guy that's definitely not an all-star, but he's someone that can be productive if you need it. He definitely wouldn't be on the bench for a rebuilding team per se.
So I do believe that Lou Williams is a starter. He's averaging 20.3 points.
Yeah, so he's been doing well for that.
You're doing well. You're 6 for 7.
I didn't think I'd be doing as well as I am,
The
but
last 3 are not.
they're
the
not
easiest.
easy. Okay.
Number 8, Miami Heat.
Miami Heat could be. I don't think it's Deion Waiters. I don't think it's Dragic. Is it? It's not. Is James Richardson the name of a guy on their team? No, I'm just not going to go with them. Josh Richardson.
That's right.
That's my name, Josh Richardson?
Yeah.
There you go. Because I didn't think Dragic was doing great. Dwayne Wade's coming off the bench at this point. I don't want to say he's an old man, but he's getting up there for sure. But yeah, there you go. My hunch was correct.
Yeah. Yeah, so the next 3, I'll give you a little bit of hint. Actually, the next 2, you guys, are all underneath 20 points per game.
Underneath 20.
So Josh Richardson, 16.7 points per game.
Not great for the Miami Heat this year.
No.
Aren't they in a playoff hunt, though?
They're in the playoff hunt. I don't know if they may currently be in a spot.
Yeah, I don't know. But definitely within the last few days. But they've been people are sleeping on them.
They're quiet.
I think, yeah, they've no one all-star, but definitely teamwork that's doing well.
So the last 2, I want you to get them.
Yeah.
I really do. I want you. Number 9, the New York Knicks.
The Knicks. Because they've made some trades recently. So I know it would have been Porzingis, but he got traded for Dennis Smith Jr., who is the person who I'm thinking could be up there. So I'd go as Dennis Smith Jr.
No.
No?
It's Emmanuel Mudiay. He's averaging 14.6 points per game as their top scorer. So.
Not great. So
No.
I think Knicks are currently in last place.
Knicks are tanking.
Yeah, they're trying to win that Zion Williamson Award, which comes with hopefully a career of greatness.
Yeah. So you are
Mudiay.
7 for 9.
Would not have guessed that.
7 for 9, not too bad.
Okay, going for that 80%.
80%. Here we go. Number 10. The Indiana Pacers.
The Indiana Pacers is rough because Oladipo got injured at the beginning of the year, but if we're not talking injuries, then I would think would be at the highest point per game.
Not.
Okay, I probably wouldn't have guessed him anyways. Okay. But so who else is an option? Miles Turner is their center. He's playing really well. It might be Thaddeus Young, who I think's also on that team, but my final guess is going to be Miles Turner.
No.
No?
It's Bogdan Bogdanović. He's averaging 18.1 points per game.
What a name on that guy, eh?
Bogdan Bogdanović.
There you go.
I think there's 2 of them in the NBA.
There's Bogdan and Boban.
Boban
Marjanović.
I think there's 2 Bogdan Bogdanovićs.
That would be an incredible feat to have 2. Wow.
There's one who plays on the Sacramento Kings, and there's one that plays on
the Pacers.
On the Pacers.
So are they spelt the exact same? I bet, is there one Boban and one Bogdan?
Good question. Because there's only like Boban Marjanović.
Yeah, he's that really tall center that I think is on the... I think he's still on the Clippers. But yeah.
Bogdan and Bojan. Bojan, which is different. But yeah, so he's currently leading scorer on the Indiana Pacers at 18.1 points per game.
But I'll take a 7 out of 10. That's not a bad score.
That's the best one we've had.
There you go. That's
what
progress.
Did I have? First week was
3. Second week I think was 5 or 6, maybe more 4 or 5.
Not good.
I'll take a 70 though. That's definitely not that bad.
Not too shabby. Nice. Well done.
Thank you. I didn't think I'd be great. I haven't been watching basketball as much this year as I have in previous years, but I'm proud of myself.
Yeah.
Not that bad. So I guess now we'll move into that third segment.
That's right.
That we'll talk about. So these are about 3 players that we like growing up. These aren't by any means the best players that have been in the league at a time, but people I would say we just enjoyed watching. People, I don't want to say we were related to, but people we may have tried to imitate, or people we may have pretended to be during road hockey.
100%.
I know I'm guilty of that one for sure. But I guess we can jump into number 1, Ben. We'll start with 3. We'll work our way up. So who is your third favorite player growing up?
Yeah, these are just, this is a guy I respected, and I loved the way he played. Steven Stamkos is my number 3.
Interesting, yeah.
It all really started, it sort of goes towards the end, and when we say growing up, we're still in the process of growing up. It's not like we've peaked, but players that while we were younger really sort of inspired us, and we love to watch. So yeah, Steven Stamkos is my number 3. It all started when I watched the 2013 skills competition, I believe. The elimination shootout was like one of the events, so they just the players would
just go down.
Shoot out, and if you didn't score, you were out.
Yeah.
And I think he won that one, and he had some unreal moves, and I just fell in love with.
Is there a nice
his
Canadian boy?
Exactly, Canadian boy. Almost played for Toronto, but
that would have been nice.
Who knows?
We got Tavares. That's okay as well.
Exactly. So he's the reason why my favorite jersey number is 91. Right? I think he really exemplified. I think he's a class act too. Yeah. I really like watching him. He's an absolute sniper.
Oh, for sure. He has his spot on the top of the circles during that power play. Definitely not as good as Ovechkin, but he's up there with goal scoring there, and that everyone knows where he's going to be. And he's definitely, hopefully, he wins the cup this year. I definitely think Tampa's the favorite for that. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah. Definitely, he's a great guy. He's good. He wasn't necessarily my top 3, but I would say my third favorite growing up would be Pavel Datsyuk.
Pavel Datsyuk,
yeah.
Nice.
Because he was on that Detroit Red Wings era that was just great, right? There was the Lidstroms, there was the Zetterbergs, these Swedish... That's where he's from, Sweden? No, he's Russian.
Datsuk's Russian.
Datsuk's Russian, but he was with the Swedish guys of Lidstrom and Zetterberg. But his hands were just the nastiest, filthiest mitts I've ever seen on a guy. Because I remember, whenever I'm watching them, I was watching him go down in a shootout or a penalty shot. I was always excited. I'm like, what nasty move am I going to see this time? Is he going to stop short and just dipsy doodle his way through? Is he going to do that backhand toe drag that I saw and have tried to emanate but never successfully completed?
That is my hands down favorite shootout move of all time. It was so good. I have never done it properly.
It's probably one of the most difficult things. My wrist will probably break when I eventually do it correctly. But what I also liked about him is that he was just so great defensively as well. He won 3 Selke Awards, which is the best defensive forward in the league. So he was just, I'd say like Patrice Bergeron, but I would say better.
Yeah.
Because he's someone that was great offensively, great defensively. I know he had goal of the year multiple times according to SportsCenter. So he's just a guy that was super entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
And also very good defensively, which I really appreciate and I think is underrated in a player.
I mean, he's my number 2.
Oh, is he?
Pavel Datsyuk is my number 2 in my top 3. So you've mentioned everything about why he was so good, but he also was incredibly humble.
Yeah.
If you watch any interview with him, he's just a very quiet, timid guy. I mean, mainly probably coming from I don't think he spoke English as well as some other people did, but he seemed incredibly humble. And I would watch his warm up thing where he just put pucks all over the ice and just go around, go through them, stick handling without moving one.
Yeah, I know he started that, but we've seen players like Patrick Kane that try to do very similar things like that when it comes to warm up. But he was the first.
Yeah.
To do that, one of a kind.
Yeah, go online and look up Pavel Datsyuk highlights. You will not be let down.
No way. So he had some great goals. I remember once he just danced essentially through some Nashville Predators defensemen to get a fantastic goal. He was always such an entertaining guy to watch.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
It's what made Detroit scary for
a
long time.
He was definitely a main reason for that dynasty.
Yeah.
No doubt. Them back-to-backs when they were battling it out with Pittsburgh. For sure, he was definitely one of their superstars that they were looking forward to.
So he was your number 3, my number 2. Who was your number 2?
My number 2 is someone that every Toronto player should love. I know he's your number 1. Yep. He has to be. He cannot be. Matt Sundin.
There you go.
Fantastic player to watch. Definitely one of the people that when I was playing hockey with my dad, I would always be Matt Sundin. He wouldn't be allowed to be Matt Sundin. He was just a guy that every Toronto kid idolized. Toronto Maple Leaf leader in points. He was just so great. My favorite Matt Sundin memory was his 500th goal. I don't know if you remember that at all. The slap shot, passing go right over the blue line, shorthanded in overtime against Calgary for the hat trick. It was just an unbelievable series of events that was just so exciting to watch.
Yeah, he was my number 1, hands down. I think if anyone were to ask, who's your favorite NHL player of all time, or even just who's your favorite NHL player, it's Matt Sundin. I grew up idolizing him, and he was who I was every time I would play hockey.
For sure, it was so fun.
With my brother and my dad, I was like, hey, my brother, he was always Gary Roberts.
Yeah,
was his player, and then it eventually transitioned into Saku Koivu.
Sure. Traitor, but not a big deal. Not a big deal.
Yeah, and then so I was always Matt Sundin, and I loved it. And I sent him a letter when I was 9 or 10.
Did you really?
About 9 or 10, and he or his agent, I don't know who it was. So I'm gonna stick with it was him.
Could it have been your mom? I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, it came back with a signed autograph pic.
Wow!
So I'm gonna say I'm holding true to the story that it was him. Wow. That Matt Sundin got my letter and autographed a picture and sent it back. He was my idol growing up.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and when I first got really into hockey, he was the Leafs era, right?
Oh, for sure.
Him, so I had to love him.
He was there. I think we got him late 90s, and he stayed true all the way to the mid to late 2000s. And I know definitely watching Hockey Night in Canada, he was the guy that was you want to see him score. Number 13, Matt Sundin. His name rhymed. Yeah. How could you not cheer for a guy whose name rhymed?
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
Matt Sundin, my number 1.
For sure. Oh, yeah. My number 1 is probably one of my favorite hockey players of all time. You know what? With any guy with the last name Orr, you know he's going to be a stud. My boy, Colton Orr, former Toronto Maple Leaf, career high of 12 goals, 12 assists, 24 points. The reason why I wear number 28. One of the most dominant guys in what he did. No word of a lie.
The thing is, you're not joking.
No, he was 100% my favorite player when I was growing up. He was the best fighter that I've heard. When I listen to some other hockey podcasts, and they always say Colton Orr was the scariest guy to fight. Because I was looking at it today, some top 10 career fights, and he was dummying some guys left and right. I'm talking 2-punch knockouts. Whenever he scored one of his 12 career goals, I was out of my seat, super excited seeing that.
One of his 12 career
Yeah, hey, you know what? It's more than I'll ever get, so kudos to Colton Orr. But, yeah, he's a guy that I loved so much. And the thing with him is that back in that era was when fighting was super popular.
That's true.
It was to where you needed a guy on your team that was an enforcer. He was able to get out there, and if your team needs to get psyched up, you're gonna get out there and fight somebody. You're gonna try to knock them down as fast as you can, get the team psyched up. Nowadays, that doesn't happen anymore. Which me maturing as a guy, I'm totally happy with. But me as a kid, I just loved seeing Colton Orr, the superior Orr. Don't even tell me there's a better person with the last name Orr. That I was just able to get out there and strike fear into the hearts of anybody on the ice. Because if Colton Orr's coming up to fight you, you know you could be in the hospital. Easily. Broken nose, anything like that.
I mean, just look at the guy.
Yeah,
that is a guy you do not want to fight.
That's a person you do not want to have throwing punches at you. No doubt about it. He was so good at what he did. That's fine. But again, I just want to make a point that I don't encourage fighting in hockey. Straight up. Me as a kid, I loved him. And he's the reason why I wear number 28. Someone saw it and asked, hey, is that for Ty Domi? I'm like, no, it's Colton Orr. Thank you, but...
The real fighter.
Yeah, I won't go that far. But Ty Domi was great, but Colton Orr, I love him so much more. Nowadays, I'm happy there isn't as much fighting going on because of what we've seen with mental health and stuff that happens like that with players. Yeah. Like, Wade Belak, unfortunately, passed away. He took his own life. That's, I want to say, definitely a reason because of the fighting and the brain damage that he got because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I recognize that there is a lot of emotions that float around, but I just think when fighting can be eliminated from the game, that's just better.
Yeah.
For
I mean,
it
also paves the way for more entertaining hockey. I mean, I know there are a lot of people that are very entertained by fights, but I mean more like the hockey itself, right? Like a guy like Mitch Marner is is able to play at the level he does nowadays because of the decreased fighting or physical aspect of the game, and so we get to watch him play and watch these small, Elias Pettersson get to play incredible hockey because they're safe.
Yeah, exactly. Those were names that I were going to bring up because if it was still in the point to where you were a big guy was able to go out and essentially go after a smaller guy to try to fight him and hit him, that we wouldn't be able to see Mitch Marner play. Like a guy that's leading the Leafs in points right now, I think, is just he's so smart and he's able to just zip around and produce offensively. So I'm definitely happy that we're able to see more talented guys as opposed to people that are just going around and fighting and hitting and punching. That would just... I don't say it wasn't entertaining to me as a kid, and I know there's a lot of people out there that also really enjoy the idea of fighting, but I'm just so happy we're able to see more talented guys, younger guys, just able to zip around the ice.
Absolutely.
And see something like that.
Yeah, it's really entertaining and safer for everyone.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
I mean,
100%.
Obviously you want there to be a little bit of physical aspect, but yeah, it's nice to see that people are safe, and like you said, the whole mental health aspect. So that's our top three.
Yeah.
You sum up your top three.
Yeah, my top three, I got Pavel Datsyuk at number 3, nasty hands, Matt Sundin, honorable Leaf, and the superior Orr, Colton Orr, someone that was just able to take over the ice.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
I mean, we had a similar top three. Mine was Steven Stamkos, then Pavel Datsyuk at number 2, and then Matt Sundin. But we have some honorable mentions.
Yeah, for sure. These are sort of serious, but sometimes sort of not. I definitely, because what you're saying about Stamkos is we're still in the process of growing up, right? Yeah. We're only 20 years old. It's hard to really remember who we were liking when you're 5, 6, or 7. So I definitely have McDavid there because he's a guy that's definitely the most entertaining guy to watch. I'd say definitely the most individually talented player in the NHL. Someone that just, when you watch, he just cruises around the ice. He had a great between the legs short side goal the other day. It's like, oh my gosh, you can't get much better than that when you have a player that's just able to be that productive.
Yeah,
on the team, right? Who would you say? Who is another one of your honorable mentions?
This one is, I mean, my honorable mentions are quite entertaining. The more I look back at my list, I have Eric Stahl.
Eric Stahl, interesting.
I really liked watching him, and a lot of my popular players, like the ones I idolized or really enjoyed watching, were from the 2010 Team Canada team. Like, that was a solid stacked
the
team.
Golden Goal, that was a great one.
Incredible. And I could say Sidney Crosby, and obviously I have looked up and really enjoy watching Sidney Crosby play, but yeah, Eric Stahl is one of those guys that just seemed classy and also fantastic hockey player.
He was one of those guys that, like, when you think classy Canadian guy, I like to think you think of Eric Stahl.
Yeah.
He also had a lot of talented brothers, right? Jordan and Mark, who were able to make the league, which is something I really, really respect for sure.
Yeah, I have a bias, and I'm not even going to deny it. I'm more than happy. I have a Canadian boy bias. Right?
Oh, no
doubt. All of my honorable mentions are Canadian guys.
No, for sure. Definitely. You're speaking of the 2010 Olympics, and one of my players was where I was actually at the Olympics, to where my family was there and we went to see some games. My honorable mention is actually Sun Rui. She was number 14 on the Chinese women's hockey team, and when I was there watching the game, she was easily the best player on the ice, no doubt. She was going up and down, destroying it, and so that's even an inside joke in my family now. I bet my dad's listening to this. He's like, "Oh, that's so true." She was unreal when we were watching her live. Something about it was just, Oh man, so entertaining to watch. When you go to a Chinese women's hockey game, you don't necessarily think you're going to see some studs, but man, she was something else.
Yeah.
She was cruising.
Yeah. It's like Haley Wickenheiser. Have you ever seen her play?
Yeah.
Oh, incredible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's classic. She's the legend.
Yeah, when you think Canadian women's hockey, you think Haley Wickenheiser, no doubt.
She's incredible. So, shout out to her. Yeah, who else is on your honorable mentions?
Okay, so I got 2 right there.
So that's 2. Oh, wait, hang on. I guess I'll go then.
Oh, have you only said 1?
I said 1.
Who's your other one?
PK Subban.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love his personality, and that's what it is.
Yeah, he's great.
He's just a very entertaining person to watch and to listen to. And have you seen his Don Cherry impression?
No, I haven't. Is it good?
Check it out. It's really
I'll check it out after for sure.
It's funny. And again, Canadian guy. Played for Montreal, so...
Yeah, not too great with that.
Little downside, but I'll forget about that.
He's in Nashville now, and that's what we're focusing on.
Right? So he's not even in Montreal
Yeah,
anymore.
remember when he was in Montreal, he was doing great stuff for the community as well, right? It's not purely his hockey performance, but his personality off the ice, which I think would be a reason why I liked him, and I bet why you liked him as well.
That's why he's on my list as an honorable mention.
Oh, for sure. Now, I'd say my third and final is someone that you may not necessarily know, someone with another famous last name, but isn't who you think is, Rene Bourque. Yeah, so I know he used to play for the Canadiens as well, and he was a guy that I would sort of similarly relate to maybe a Tom Wilson, maybe a Milan Lucic when he was in his prime. A guy that was able to be productive offensively and a guy who was also able to be big and physical.
Yeah.
Because that's someone that you could really appreciate when I find most people are either in the camp of they're really great offensively, a lot of puck skills, but they're not the most physical people, or you have the really physical guys that aren't great offensively. You find some people in the middle like Ovechkin, like Tom Wilson, like we were saying.
But, Chris Neal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Chris Neal, we don't have to talk about him. I kind of don't like him.
Yeah.
But Rene Bourque was on that line to where he was able to. I think he scored. He had a 30 goal season or something around there, to where he was able to be productive and good while also being really physical.
Yeah.
Around there.
Absolutely. That's a good pick. Yeah.
Respect him.
Famous last name followed by a first name that's not exactly the Ray Bourque or the Bobby Orr that you say. My third honorable mention. Rick Nash. Again, Canadian boy. Played in the 2010 Olympics.
Oh, so not Steve Nash is what you're going for.
Steve Nash.
No, Rick Nash, for sure.
Rick Nash. The first time I really appreciated how good Rick Nash was the goal he scored.
I know exactly what goal you're going to talk about.
Yeah. And he went between the leg he toe dragged 2 guys and then put it in.
I know exactly what you mean.
I don't know how to describe it, but that Rick Nash dangles 2 guys goal. Google it, look it up somewhere.
Oh, if you just search Rick Nash goal, it'll be one of the ones that comes up.
It's when he was on Columbus quite a few years ago, but I saw that goal and I was like, I gotta start watching this guy.
That was just one of those pure talent moments, right? You see some people that get lucky maybe with someone kicks it to their stick, but that was pure toe drag it through a guy, put it through someone's legs, carry it over, and put the biscuit in the basket. You hockey bros listening will understand. But yeah, definitely Rick Nash is one of those guys that's also a really good one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's my 3 honorable mentions and my 3 top 3.
Yeah, so I definitely think that about sums up what we were listening to today. We were talking about some news earlier with some jersey retirements, LeBron James sitting, Patrick McCaw. I did half decently, I would say, getting 7 out of 10 on
Not
that quiz
to
see how the leading scores for each team.
I thought I was going to get you with the Josh Richardson.
No, I'm thinking he's a good guy. He's not bad. Then finished off talking about our favorite players. So yeah, thank you again everyone for listening. Like Ben said, we are on Apple Podcasts now, so if you definitely click on that subscribe button there, you'd be able to get our podcasts every week. And if you do enjoy, definitely be sure to give us a 5-star rating. We would really appreciate that. And also definitely follow us on Instagram, the podcast account at the BinkCast Podcast, and our individual accounts, myself at david.d.rogers and my co-host at ben.austin. If you'd like, definitely comment on either our YouTube or our official Instagram page. There you'd be able to leave comments on if you'd like for us to discuss any podcasts or any game ideas. And with that, we will see you guys next week.